The person behind this entire week surrounding the Kyiv City Ballet. I'd like to welcome you to this event, this panel discussion, which is one of the reasons that we actually wanted to have this entire week. So thanks for taking the time to engage. Thanks to Dean Frost and the Honors College for letting us use the Guerry Reading Room and for the desserts, coffee, and drinks that are outside afterwards. Dean Frost and her students and staff have just been wonderful working with us for the last couple of months, and in doing so have supported our efforts to bring the Kyiv City Ballet to Chattanooga as part of their first ever American tour. So thanks to all of them, and I don't know where she is right now, but she should show up shortly. Beyond the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring a major European dance company to Chattanooga, one of the goals of this residency was to bring attention to the issues surrounding refugees worldwide, in the United States and here in Chattanooga. With the partnership and support of the Honors College and Dean Frost as part of this, we're fortunate to bring two experts to lead this discussion today and hopefully enlighten us on the situation in Ukraine and how it impacts us as citizens who have an opportunity to respond to the crisis in very real ways. Tonight's conversation leaders aren't just experts in their fields. They have personal skin in the game. Both are Ukrainian, both have family in Ukraine as we speak. In addition to her position as UC Foundation Professor of Political Science and Public Policy, Dr. Irina Khmelko has served as an associate, contractor, and invited guest speaker for several world development and policy-making organizations, including the U.S. Agency for International Development and the World Bank. Dr. Khmelko works in 7 languages, publishes in multiple countries. Her research interests lie in the field of legislative studies in post-authoritarian societies. She has 4 graduate degrees, received her PhD from the School of Public and Environmental Affairs and the Department of Political Science at Indiana University. She has an MPA degree from Bowling Green State University, a Master of Arts from Lancaster University in England, and a PhD equivalent graduate degree from the USSR. Marina Peshterianu, the Associate Director of Bridge Refugee Services, which has locations in Chattanooga and Knoxville, immigrated to Chattanooga from her hometown of Kyiv in 1993. She came here with her family. She has been with Bridge Refugee Services since 1999, serving as a case manager, job developer, and employment specialist. She was named Associate Director in 2014. She has assisted refugees from Vietnam, Bosnia, Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, Liberia, Sudan, Burundi, Tanzania, Congo, Chad, Somalia, Iraq, Iran, Cuba, and Colombia, all in their transition into a new life here in East Tennessee. Ms. Peshterianu is a finalist for the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce's Nautilus Lightkeeper Award, which celebrates the success of women in the workplace who provide and advocate for increased opportunities for women of all ages. Ms. Peshterianu is also a member of the Professional Advisory Board for the UTC Social Work Program. This time I'd like to welcome Dr. Khmelko to the podium to open the presentation and sort of lay the groundwork for the greater discussion about refugees as a result of this conflict.
Thank you, Robert. Welcome everybody. I was asked to provide some sort of academic background foundation, some sort of an analysis at the beginning to lay some ground for our discussion today. So this is the country we are talking about today. As you could see, Ukraine, it's one of the largest countries in the world, in Europe, I mean. It borders multiple countries, as you could see. It borders Russia, Belarus, multiple countries that you see in there. And right now, this is a country that has been attacked and unfortunately goes through very, very difficult times. And one of the questions we political scientists are asking is why? So I'm not going to spend too much time on that and reiterate what you hear on the news anyway. which is Putin's desire to rebuild some sort of Russian empire or some sort of a Soviet Union again. But my question is, well, if he indeed wants to annex Ukraine, why such a destruction? If you want to take over a territory, would you really want to level it? And that tells me he does not want to take the entire Ukraine. He wants to take parts of the Ukraine and probably leave the other, some small portion as Ukraine. The scenario is well known, Georgia, attack on Georgia, on the country of Georgia. But the question becomes then, why such a severe and heavy destruction? Anything you see on the news, I mean, it's just the human suffering is, it's hard to see. It's very hard to tolerate, to see how much people are suffering. My friend went just to get some bread in a bakery, and the next thing I'm receiving a picture, and there is an apartment building or condominium. There is no wall, and there is sofa hanging from the 6th floor, and it's somebody's home that was just destroyed. The rocket just hit it, and she just went to get some bread. So in my, from what I know from my research, the best, the end goal, and again, this is my personal conclusion from my research, from what I know, what is it that Putin wants? He wants to have a Ukraine, but incredibly weak, incredibly submissive. Some country where people are poor, right? If people are poor, you give them something, they will be basically, he wants to subjugate the country and turn them into another mini Russia, mini me, basically mini me scenario in this way. What do we know from science? Countries are poor. What countries are poor? And there is an amazing writer, Paul Collier, he's a political economist from Britain, and he discovered 4 traps that keep countries poor. Even 2 are enough. In this particular case, having a bad neighbor, which is, yes, neighbor who's shooting at you is a bad neighbor. It's not a good neighbor at all. The second condition for that is to deprive country access to the sea. And if you look at the map of Ukraine and where Russians are right now occupying, it's really the southern part. See the Crimean Peninsula already taking everything above it. And then, of course, the fight you've heard about Luhansk and Donetsk. But the idea is to deprive the country of access to the sea, and that usually, even 2 traps, there are 2 more traps, but I'm not going there, but even those 2, bad neighbor and deprive a country access to the sea. Collier did his research on Africa, but it's a conclusive research. It's really a recipe. If you want a recipe how to make country poor, this is the recipe. Like Putin read the book, and he literally plays according to what that book suggests needs to be dealt with. At the end, I will actually talk about solutions, because if you understand the problem, we can actually find a solution. Next slide, please. Just very quickly, I'm not going to read all of that, but Ukraine is a rather diverse society. As you could see, a lot of different ethnic groups in there. There are multiple spoken languages in there. The majority of Ukrainians are bilingual. They speak at least 2 languages fluently and at the native level. Next slide, please. Religion, in terms of religion, it's a pretty not diverse. It's really a country which is the majority either, well, it's a Christian Orthodox country, so Christianity, one of the 5 major religions, is the religion of there. You could see the distribution. This was the age distribution before the war. Next slide, please. At this point, could you please click? I wanted just to spend 2 minutes and then 30 seconds and show you Ukraine before and after the attack. Yes, that's the one. So just 2 minutes.
Welcome to beautiful city of Kyiv. My name is Julia and I'm going to be your guide here. Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, is one of the most fascinating and underrated places in all Europe. Today we're going to show you the best places to visit. So watch this video till the end. Refugee, the main street of Kyiv, took its name from the word France. Here you can find a lot of bars, restaurants, cafes, and world-known brand shops. So I recommend you to start exploring Kyiv from this place. There is also a huge shopping mall underground where you can find almost everything from souvenirs to food and groceries. This is St. Andrew Church, one of the most gorgeous churches in Kyiv. church, you can continue and go directly to a landscape alley. It's a free entrance park for kids and adults, full of heroes from different fairy tales and cartoons. Overlooking the Dnipro River is the Peshterianu. This monastery complex is known for its iconic golden domes, one of the most notable elements of the Kyiv skyline. It was built in the 11th century as an important center of Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and it attracts millions of tourists and pilgrims every year. Standing proudly at the top of a hill is the statue of the strong lady, the motherland. It was installed.
Well, this is the before picture. So then I wanted to show you a few things. All of these places have very special meaning to me and to my family. My great-grandmother was a church member at the St. Andrew's Church, and it's just a beautiful, it's absolutely gorgeous country. Ukraine is gorgeous, hospitable. Now let's click on the second video. Yeah, and this is not the video, so we'll just flip a few, let's go to the right. So these are just some pictures, maybe hard to look at, but this is, just keep going, let's just flip. This is how like apartment buildings look. Many people give their kids just to take them out of the area of bombardment. People bring candies, people bring food. These are refugees. People are sleeping in some gyms and running, and we will talk more about refugees today. This is what left of their homes. That's why they have to be refugees. Yeah, let's just give a few more. This is usually governmental buildings, apartment buildings. Look at all the military in there, and just maybe a few more. Yeah, as you could see, Molotov cocktails are flying. And yeah, this is a devastation. This is the country that is absolutely devastated. And as you could see, it was a beautiful gym. Look what left out from that gym. Look at how that's just military tanks and the machinery. And that's what people see there in that country. You drive somewhere and yeah, that's it. All right, let's go back to the slideshow. This is just before and after. You could see the level of devastation and the level of human suffering there. But I wanted to talk about not what Putin would, what is it that Ukrainians want? And I guess the easy answer is, well, they want to win the war, or they want to be free. But what they really, really want from the beginning, in 1991, beginning 1990, 1991, that's when the Soviet Union was disintegrating. At that particular time, Ukrainians really wanted to go for democracy. It was really important for them to fight for democracy. These pictures that you see are students of your age, and they went on the main square, and they literally went on a hunger strike. That's another slide. That was a tent city. The square you've seen at the beginning of the video, before pictures, this is the square. This is how it looked in 1990, 1991. Students were coming from all over, and government was trying to force feed them, and they were fighting. And that was really, and the population united behind. The population wanted to abandon the authoritarian regime, separate from Russia, and they wanted to go towards democracy. On December 1st, Ukraine had a referendum, a real one, and there was an overwhelming majority who said, we want to be independent, and we want to be a democracy, we want to be with the Western Europe. Well, this is something very difficult to talk about. 1994, Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons. Ukraine had the second largest arsenal of the nuclear weapons, which is a known deterrent against aggression. Next slide, please. Picture, recognize Bill Clinton, Russian President Yeltsin, British, Ukrainian presidents signing memorandum and guaranteeing territorial integrity of Ukraine in return for basically Ukraine will give up nuclear weapons, become non-nuclear country, and all these countries guaranteed its sovereignty. Next one. 96, another big step towards democracy in Ukraine, new constitution. It took Ukrainians over 5 years to come up, to write and agree to a new constitution. And that's, as you could see, celebration in the parliament. Another fight for democracy, it's 2004, flawed election, and Ukrainians went again on that square that I showed you in the before video, and they just were marching and demanding. It was called Orange Revolution. Another picture of Orange Revolution, that's the picture that you've seen in the video. 2008, I told you about Georgia. That was the day when the Russians attacked Georgia and annexed part of Georgian territory. So the same scenario plays in Ukraine, just at a much larger scale. Another fight for democracy continued. This is when Ukrainians decided to fight to move towards European integration. They wanted to be part of Europe, they wanted to remain part of Europe, and they wanted to have democracy in that country. That's another picture that's, as you could see, a lot of, literally they build barricades and people, and that's what strikes me in the United States. How many people take democracy for granted here, and they think that it lasts forever, and it does not. It's so easy to lose it, and it's so hard to get it back, or especially when you're starting from scratch like there, and even when you're making progress. The world is a very turbulent place, and that always makes me think in the US, I mean, people don't, you cannot do that. I'm here 30 years, and I consistently see people who just take it for granted. And I understand it's wonderful, actually, that you can take it for granted, but many people fight for that, and it's a hard fight. More pictures of Euromaidan. Okay, this is the big one, which is, this is Crimea. That's when Putin came. The war in Ukraine actually started then, when Putin came and annexed Crimea from Ukraine. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, right? He's a very well-known comedian. Actually, if you have Netflix, there is a really good comedy series there. It's called Servant of the People. The Zelensky president plays the guy who actually becomes the president. Who knew, right? But okay, let's move. Yeah, now we'll go to those pictures, the last set of pictures that I wanted to show you. Yeah, we'll just go through pictures. Ukraine doesn't stand alone. The world stands with Ukraine, and we'll just go through those. Let's just flip through the few pictures there. Just keep going down. I think we have to scroll down. Yeah, it's a PDF, so it should be scrolling down. Yeah, as you could see, yeah, just slowly, move slowly, that's fine. As you could see, a lot of pictures, some of the most famous images of world standing with Ukraine. You will see people in Paris, and yeah, let's just keep going down. People in Germany, like in Australia, a lot of famous buildings are painted blue and yellow. Blue for wheat fields that Ukraine has, and blue for the blue skies. As you could see, sweating tears, bloody tears. And a lot of soccer association took a strong stand there too. So Ukrainians are not alone. The world is supporting them strongly. A lot of demonstrations, a lot of events around the world, and yeah, people supporting Ukraine and demonstrating around the world in all major cities in the world. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Okay, are there solutions to the problem? Yes, there are solutions, and there is a silver lining to that, and the science shows us, well, of course, any war, I'm not going to talk about military solutions, I'm not a military expert, but political solutions are there, and of course, any war needs money, so depriving a country aggressor of resources to run the war, it's one big one, which means more sanctions, which means more isolation, which means not buying Russian products, which means depriving them of resources. Clean energy sources, developing. I mean, in this world, so many people tell me, oh, it's impossible. Yes, it's possible. The science is there. We just need to change just a little more research, and we can have very comfortable and clean energy. So actually something good can come out of that. We can live in a very clean world if we just believe in it and do it. And how does Putin get his money? He basically sells resources which are running out anyway, so we'll be out of those. Some are 50 years, some are 80 years. And of course, Marshall Plan for Ukraine. If Putin wants to make Ukraine poor and dilapidated, and that's his plan to control it, then remember the Second World War, and at that time we were that rich country, and European Union, which is European Union right now, was incredibly poor. And look now they are very wealthy, they're our major trading partners, And that's actually which benefits us at the end, because having such a reliable trading partner allows us to have a good quality of life and the level of wealth that the United States has. Of course, for Marshall Plan, we need to have this war over. We need to pretty much finish with that. All right, thank you guys for your attention.
Hello, I'm Marina Peshterianu. I'm not such an expert lecturer like Professor right here. So, but back in the day, I was a teacher. So this kind of environment is very familiar to me. I wonder why everybody showed up. Probably you had different reasons. Hopefully, everybody will leave with a sense that they got what they wanted, even if it is a check mark that you needed for the credit or real interest in world politics. It happened so that I immigrated to Chattanooga in 1993. I worked as a teacher. I volunteered at Bridge because I had all this summer and nothing better to do. I'm bilingual. I speak Russian and Ukrainian, and at that time, English, so trilingual, and French was my minor, but I prefer not to tell anybody I'm not really fluent in French. But at that time, we were working as a community with the Bosnian refugees who were coming from the Balkan war in the Balkans. And I was very, it turned out that we can communicate, and I very quickly could pick up Serbo-Croatian because it is a Slavic language, and pretty much like the difference are not huge. That's how I've learned so much about refugees. Finally, I decided to quit my career in education and very good pension plan, and go to a nonprofit where I can have direct impact and assist people who are in this turmoil. Since then, you heard the list of countries that I had an opportunity to work with. When people ask me what are my professional goals, I always say to not have a job because there are no more refugees to resettle. Because the whole idea of serving people who, through no fault of theirs, through all these political reasons that were outlined here, have to flee their country with the very small hope that they will ever have a place that they can call home. So a little bit of numbers. There are 80 million of displaced people in the world. Half of them, more than half, are women and children. For the purpose of immigration status, because a refugee for immigration purposes is somebody who flees their country because of the well-based fear for their lives due to persecution based on race, ethnicity, gender, political or other affiliations. Based on that, there are probably about 25 million people who would qualify. There are so many myths about refugees, but I will just talk about some of them. America takes a lot of refugees. Wrong. Usually, the country that neighbors the country in turmoil takes the most number of refugees. 4 million Ukrainians were able to cross the border of Poland. Poland has never been a country that resettles refugees. It was a quick way to safety. You could drive in your car if you had gas. Never leave your car without gas, because anything can happen. You want to be able to take measures for safety. And, other countries also participate: Canada, Australia, New Zealand, sometimes Switzerland or Sweden will take 1,000 refugees a year. So how do we measure up? Before Trump administration, we were out there big players. Still very small ratio based on how many people live in America and how many people were resettled. Recently, puny impact of 10, 15,000 people. So the majority of these displaced people are destined to live and die in refugee camps. The average time for a refugee to be resettled is 20 years. The average time to be vetted for United States is about 2-3 years. What else is another myth? Oh, they don't have a choice where they will go. It's a lottery. So when the United Nations High Commissioner crew comes to the refugee camp or to the locality with a lot of refugees, they pretty much say that we have an opportunity to resettle so many people in the United States, and people will, just pull the ticket. So how does it affect our community? We're a small town in the South that always supported refugees since back when, because of the Southern hospitality, Christian faith that encourages people to welcome a stranger. Our Jewish community participated in the exodus of Jews in 70s and 80s from the former Soviet Union. And in 1996, I think, they finally opened an office, Bridge opened an office, because Catholic Charities closed the office here. So we resettled thousands of people. And a lot of people don't know anything about it, but a lot of people also know a lot about it. What we do is we receive all the information through the database of the State Department. We are federally funded nonprofit, and we prepare apartments for people who will be coming. We have their bio, we have the family content, and we'll set apartments. We will hook up with volunteers like you, churches, other groups. I think the Honor Student Society once sponsored the family years back. And the goal is self-sufficiency. Our mission, our goal, our vision is to give people a second chance to rebuild their life and to be contributing members of our society. So now, when you're in Chattanooga and you go to Eastridge, you will see a big Bosnian community, a Bosnian restaurant, and a Bosnian store, and the Bosnian Culture Center. If you go to Cleveland, you will see a huge Ukrainian community there. If you go to East Brainerd, there are a lot of Ukrainians, and a Ukrainian store back there in Ultava. There is Ukrainian churches. There are a lot of people that came here over the years. So what happened now? What happens now? Usually, as I said, the refugee resettlement program is a little bit cumbersome because of the security issues and because of the number of people and smaller number of countries that can take refugees for permanent resettlement. But over the years, United States, which I'm very proud, made a couple of efforts to mitigate this impact and to bring people fast. First time, they airlifted people, within my professional life and bridge of 23 years. First time, they airlifted Kosovars. You were not even born then, probably, but there was a war in Bosnia, and Kosovo was under attack, and United Nations forces were putting people in the airplanes and just taking them to safety. Some of them made it to US, and some of them made it to Chattanooga, and some of them made it to Cleveland, and they say that the best barber in Cleveland is one of my former clients. His name is Becky. Then last year, with our forces leaving Afghanistan, we put 75,000 people in the military planes, because if we would leave them behind, they would definitely die, will be killed. All of them assisted American military or worked in American NGOs. Of course, they brought them to military bases. They know what really to do with them other than they saved their lives. And they remembered, oh, we have refugee resettlement network in the United States. So we worked with those Afghans. Some of them I worked with BBC documentary where really outstanding people in Afghanistan, pilots, teachers, doctors, and engineers, all of them ended up in our small community. Then we were overwhelmed with the impact. It's a lot of people. They had to move them from military bases. Military bases is not, for people to live. They lived in tents, they lived in hangars, they lived, it was better than other alternative, but we quickly had to find housing and resources. And now, when in January, I told everybody that I will take a vacation because we couldn't, we were busy. On the 22nd of February, we resettled a Ukrainian family, a young family with 2 children. And at that time, the Russian forces were kind of surrounding Ukraine, but they were saying, it's just what is called the military exercises. Not that we ever believed anything Putin says. So when they came to the airport and I was there, I said, how did you leave? Was everything safe? Could you, and they said, yeah, fine. And the next day, the war started. We were waiting for the word how United States will respond to this. You remember there were among people who promised us that if we will give up our nuclear weapons, they will protect us. And so there was that pause of, okay, now we don't have anything to protect ourselves. And by the way, we're one of the biggest countries in Europe. It's not like we, need protection. We are counting on you to support us. Of course, I have to say, the help came. I would say, of course, always, always. You need it yesterday. It was a little bit delayed, but I also understand all the processes that are involved. So everything is in place now. Hopefully, very soon we'll have a good news of victory. Meanwhile, people are leaving, people are running, people that look just like us, act like us, lived like us. They're carrying their little pets. They put beautiful bows in their daughter's hair, but they're still refugees who don't know if they will ever be able to come home. So the response also that U.S. did very quickly, they opened a program that is called Uniting for Ukraine, where they said, it's not enough time to go through refugee resettlement, we're federally funded, there has to be votes taken, money given, and all of that. So let's see if people who live in America want to sponsor Ukrainians. And we will give them 2 years to wait until everything will go back to normal. So we were, yes, this is wonderful. This is good. It brings us closer. It's really people-to-people assistance. It doesn't have bureaucracy involved. Such a streamlined process takes about 2 weeks. Yes, what I didn't realize, that 300 people will come to small town of Chattanooga because there are so many wonderful people who want them to live and survive and, have some kind of future. So that was a little puzzling for us. We never resettled more than 100 people a year, and now we had 300 people on our door, which is a good problem to have. The DHS, meaning Department of Homeland Security, sends me weekly reports, and the number grows. So people will still come. They don't have place to live. You have seen how it's leveled. But also our community, again, made me proud because for the size of our little town, the response is humongous. So I don't like lecturers who take a lot of time talking. So I guess the second part is the fun part. Hopefully you have good, interesting questions.
With that, let me let's get comfortable. I would like to take one moment to recognize one among us, Arsen Marshuk. He is a UTC graduate student, one of the pair of students who are here in the UTC Global Response Assistantship, which worked with the State Department and several other organizations, including the Ukrainian government, to get them here. He's pursuing a Master of Public Administration degree in Political Science and Public Service. His classmate, Irina Khmelko, is in class at the moment in College of Engineering and Computer Science, so she would be here otherwise, but welcome, thank you. I'm opening the floor up for questions, would love to have some. I can provide microphone, tell you what here. Here's the other one. And it looks like it's operating, so if you folks want to pass it along, you go here first.
I first want to say that I want to thank Bob for all the work he's done. I don't think many people on campus realize that he's the director of the Art Center. And I got here this summer and walked into the Art Center, and he was standing alone at the ticket booth. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm Bob, I'm the director here." And I said, "Well, where's all your coworkers and everything?" He said, "There are none, it's just me." And I was like, wow. And what I realized that Bob, by himself mostly, with a lot of help from people on campus, and I hope I'm not embarrassing about, put together this whole thing, and I think we really need to show some appreciation for somebody that worked that hard. Anyway, that's my third insight from showing up early on campus. I have a question that's bothering me quite a bit, which is the fact that this war is a disaster for the world. And I don't know if it was preventable, but it seems like our government and the world governments really missed the character and the persona of Putin as a monster, as a mass killer, and as a follower of Stalin and a Stalinist. And if we know our history, and if we had identified him a little more accurately, there could have been a much stronger response earlier with the idea that we know this man, and he's about to threaten the world. And that's, so there's two things I'm asking is why didn't we know that the world would be threatened so greatly at this moment and continuing to be, both with nuclear war and also with starvation, because the Ukraine is the breadbasket of a large section of the world, and disrupting that is leading to a crisis that can kill millions of people from starvation. So my question is, how did we so misinterpret this government of Russia, this character of a despot, mass murderer, and not be more prepared for what's happening? Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. It seems like, when we say we did know, and we did talk about it, and we heard about it a lot, that Russia will attack Ukraine. Ukrainians did not believe it. On the day of attack, I was calling my friends asking, and colleagues, over 30 people, asking them to stay home, and they wouldn't. Everybody thought I was crazy. How did I know? Because I read what our government was publishing. I saw what was coming, and I stayed through half of the night just to give them last night of peace. I just wanted people to have at least one more night. And then in the morning, everybody almost ridiculed me. Ukrainians, it was such a historic betrayal. Ukrainians really did not believe that Russia would attack and do that. And then I'm on the phone with one of my very close friends from my elementary school, and she says, "Oh, I have to get an umbrella, Irina, I have to get to work." And I'm hearing, the rhythm. There is no rhythm to the storm. And all of a sudden you hear this whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And I'm like, Olga, you have to get yourself to safety. It's not a thunder. Thunder does not have this. And that's what it is. But we did. And why did not we respond? That's a very good question. And largely for the same reasons as the world did not respond and prevented Hitler from doing what he did. It's the same story. Democracies are trying to avoid fighting. It's really the same logic, and democracies are trying to prevent fighting at any cost. Democracies usually do not fight, do not like fighting, but authoritarian regimes do. Putin's actually, his ideal is not really so much even Stalin, but Peter the Great. Peter the Great, who fought through the entire, he was a Tsar, and he was fighting. He's the one who, what Russians proudly are talking about, opened a window to the Baltic Sea. But the logic is the same. Think about this logic. If somebody steals your wallet, right, puts it in a pocket, and then the policeman catches him, right, and says, "Hey, there is a wallet, but it's in my pocket, so it's mine," right? That's the logic, right? It's mine. But you just stolen it, but it's in my pocket, so it's mine. And this is the history. And if you look at this window to the Baltic Sea, if you look at the expansion up to the Siberia, this glorification of violence and conquest of the territories, this absolute admiration of the Ottoman Empire, which is Turkey right now, which, well, it's a different country, but at that time, and this going and just forcefully taking and just, it's in my pocket, so it's mine. So we didn't know. Why didn't we prepare? Why didn't we do more? Because we are a democracy. We have multiple groups, and our government represents all of the groups, and there are multiple cleavages, and to work through those cleavages takes time. In any democracy is very messy. Don't take me wrong. Authoritarian regime, when there is a czar or king or dictator, yeah, snap your fingers and everybody just, but that comes at the expense. You're not allowed to think what you think. You're not allowed to think for yourself. Many groups getting abused. But democracy is not messy, and it takes time, and we just ran out of time. As we ran out of time with Hitler, we ran out of time with Putin as well. But I do believe we did know that. Well, I certainly did.
Okay. Here, and you, okay.
So I actually have two questions, if that's okay. So as far as depriving Russia of funds for the war, I'm wondering, they keep talking about how India and China are not really joining with the effort to deprive them of funds. So I'm wondering if you think that there's a way to get them on board with that so that Russia can actually be deprived of funds. And then on the refugee side, I'm also wondering if, my husband's actually Russian, and we have Russian family who has left Russia as refugees in the last few months. And I'm wondering if any Russian refugees may be coming here to Chattanooga in addition to those Ukrainian ones we were talking about.
It's two excellent questions, really outstanding questions. Actually, I'm happy to report that just yesterday and today there is a significant move on behalf of both China and especially India. Since Putin decided to threaten with nuclear weapons, both countries got terrified, and all of a sudden they moved away. They already were closing the channels for trade, and basically our diplomacy worked in terms of we closed the back door for all sorts of sales, maybe some, but really the majority are. If you look at China right now, the last time I looked, and it's fascinating because they're at about 20% of trade with Russia. They still have some, but guess what? So does Western Europe. Nobody just can cut the cord. But 20% for China. China is talking a nice talk with Putin, but what it is doing, it's quite different. Not only that, when Putin tried to coerce Kazakhstan to send troops to Ukraine to kill Ukrainians, and Kazakhstan is heavily supported by China, they said no, because China said no, because China said if you would, and Putin said he would attack Kazakhstan, and China said if you attack Kazakhstan, Chinese troops are moving to Kazakhstan, they're going to protect. So China is not so much on the side of Putin, but yes, they do have about 20% trade right now still, but it's declining, it's steadily declining. In terms of India, India was kind of ignoring it for a long time, but when a few days ago Putin said more forcefully, and actually yesterday I think he made another speech about using nuclear, even tactical weapons, but think about it, that he's going to take something as poisonous as radiation, and I know, I lived through Chernobyl, I'm still suffering with immunocompromises you, so you cannot, and he's going to use it on purpose. Chernobyl was an accident, and he's saying he will do it on purpose. It has no tactical, I read a lot about that, there is no, it will not give him any advantage on the field, on the battlefield. But yeah, it's terrorism, it's terrifying the population. So when India heard that, they moved away, or they are backpedaling heavily. They just don't want, and our diplomacy works, and not only our, but actually, believe it or not, but Australia and New Zealand are there because there is a lot of trade between like India and Australia and those countries. And so European Union, of course, took an incredibly strong stand. I mean, when you listen to leaders, with a few exceptions, but the majority are standing strong, and these are coveted trade partners. So diplomacy works through trade in there, and even Turkey that was supporting Putin like verbally, but all the drones that you see flying in Ukraine, those are Turkish drones. They're sending they're actually expediting shipment of a lot of military aid. So what country says and what country does, we need to watch very carefully, and looking at what I would advise everybody to look at numbers. If you look at numbers, it will tell you everything. Follow the money and you would see what the country is actually doing. And China, and especially India, it's just something clicked for them when they heard about the threat of nuclear weapons. And of course, everybody's terrified of the nuclear war, because if we explode a fraction of what we have in terms of big rockets, the Earth would move from its, from its path, and that means when it goes away from the orbit, we need it because we need oxygen, we need certain degree of radiation. Our, plants that we eat, they need a certain degree of sun radiation and water and atmosphere and all that. So it terrified. India got absolutely terrified with that. It was that shock that actually brought India in line with everybody else. India still has a lot of trade with Russia, but given the recent change of attitude, I can see that they will follow the China's path. So they will be talking this soft talk, but watch what they're doing and look the numbers of the trade. I think that's the best.
Thank you. This is a good question. Definitely, there will be refugees leaving Russia. They will probably go to Europe, Eastern Europe, Finland, Georgia, because of the sanctions. They will not be able to fly to the United States, but when people do the flight, they just find the easiest and fastest way. I've heard of people coming through the Mexican border, very small number, but in the Uniting for Ukraine, there is an umbrella statement that Russians who lived habitually in Ukraine and had Ukrainian passports will be allowed to come through the program. Yeah, it always, any kind of war always affects both sides. And my heart goes for the Russian boys who lose their lives for nothing, for political gain. It's not, I have a lot of Russian friends. It's not them who hate us. You know, we have to really, truly protect human right to have choices, be very, careful who we vote for. Are we active in our civic expression? Because Putin can happen to any country. This could have happened to any country. And I'm very sorry, actually, for Russians, for those good ones who carry the burden of this. So, sorry. The family who is down there.
Okay. All right, so I've been hearing a lot about Ukraine turning in like an accelerated application into NATO. So if they got accepted, like what would the implications be to, and also like if my second question, if Russia has more success with Ukraine, do you think that will embolden China in relation to like Taiwan?
I didn't hear the end of your last question. Could you?
If Russia has more success with Ukraine, do you think that will embolden China in relation to Taiwan?
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, the first question, two excellent questions, absolutely outstanding question. Thank you for everybody. Thank you for really good questions. Allow us to have a good conversation. Really appreciate it. The first question, NATO, yes, Ukraine did file for the expedited the way they Finland and Sweden. What is going to happen? Well, the charter of NATO says that if countries in a state of war, it cannot be admitted to NATO. Also, it requires that each and every member of NATO says yes to that process, and obviously you all heard about Hungary, what's happening in Hungary right now. Italy elected ultra-right, super right prime minister, so it takes only one to say no. So is there a prospect? Yes. Is it an immediate one? No. But eventually I do believe that Ukraine will be able to join the NATO. It just may take, if you want my rough estimate, and again, it's just my individual estimate, it's just 10 years. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm sorry, what was the second? Oh yeah, about
do you think it will, if they have more success with Ukraine, invading Ukraine, do you think China will play copycat with Taiwan?
this is a super tricky. I mean, I just organized the workshop in Taiwan, and it was supposed to happen in September. Now it's moved for February, because there is a real threat that China may use this situation to attack Taiwan militarily. I know that the United States stands strongly against it, and there is a lot of moving pieces in there. Look at Japan, which is militarizing first time since the Second World War. Look at what's happening in countries that like Korea, especially South Korea. It's a major player in the region. What's interesting that Kim Jong-un and North Korea not necessarily too supportive of Putin, even though, and again, who is the main provider for North Korea? China. So it tells you, back to the previous question about that China really is the major player. But will China give up Taiwan? No. And well, it's a one country policy, but it's very likely that at least some strikes could be, or some military could be. At least right now, there are a lot of military activity around Taiwan. And Taiwanese, they're fighting very hard against anything like that, and they do have support of the community, of the world community, but China is huge army right there next door. Democracies, NATO probably would not want to, just like with the Ukraine, the same scenario. So a lot of moving pieces on this chessboard. So we don't know the end of the story, and I don't know the answer of how it will all end, but it's possible. So we should watch Taiwan very closely. Right now, the world is watching Ukraine. Taiwan is on the radar, but it's a different situation, and China has some other tools that Putin didn't have with Ukraine, but China has it. So it's possible that they will resolve it, and at least for now, we will have our workshop in February. Thank you for your question.
Other questions? All right, let me keep saying, I want to exercise just a little executive privilege here. Number one, I forgot to mention earlier, if you are getting
I think that the best response is to volunteer your time. This is, of course, an opportunity to do the fundraising for Ukraine. Students are always very capable of raising a lot of money for good cause, very successful. But volunteering is the best route to go as well. When people come to US, they, even if they drove in their country, you know how here in Chattanooga we depend on our personal cars. So these people are isolated. They cannot go to medical appointment. They cannot go with their child to enroll them to school. They cannot do grocery shopping, just simple things. We appreciate volunteers, transportation volunteers, who help them through this initial barrier. The second thing.
How do we get your name and contact information?
Oh, it's all over the webs.
Tomorrow night,
You
Ken.
will find
Tomorrow night.
okay.
They'll be there.
Yeah, but seriously, just look up Bridge Refugee Services. We have a website, we're on Facebook and Instagram. Let's also talk about integration. When people isolate, no matter what vulnerability they have, this just escalates that. People need to learn the language, people need to have a network of supporters, of people they can talk, of people they can ask simple questions about, how our community functions. And if their child played soccer, where is the soccer field that they can go on a weekend? Simple things, very human, simple things. And that's where we can be valuable advocates for our community, making people feel welcome, soothing this way of this initial shock and trauma of being, in the new place without huge support. So please look us up on Facebook. Sign up right now. You all have phones. We put out stories. We put out questions. We put out needs, and you will be able to choose the one that fits your aspirations.
My question is, do you think that if Ukraine had known this war was coming, that they had made the same decision to give up nuclear weapons?
I'm a fighter. I wouldn't give it up then, but I'm not a political science professor, so my personal response to you, I would never, ever, ever give up my weapons until I secure alliance and support. I'm not a politician, so.
I think we know the answer, right? But what really we need to be focusing right now, the United States, well, any country of the world has national security interests, and our interest was to keep this world peaceful and away from the nuclear war. And we had a policy, the United States has always had a policy of non-nuclear proliferation. We were fighting nuclear proliferation as much as we could. And obviously right now, when we are talking to Iran or North Korea, trying to stop them from developing more nuclear weapons. And obviously the idea is the more nuclear weapons are there, the more likely some crazy person will press the button and destroy this planet for all of us and ruin it completely for all of us. So the big question is how, and that's something to watch, how will the United States and the Western industrialized countries address the issue of nuclear non-proliferation, because many countries right now, looking at what happened to Ukraine, you realize the lesson for everybody, right? And what's happening and the suffering and the human suffering and just what's happening to the country at all. But if you think in terms of the planet and how do you even address it with the country? You go to Iran and says, well, you don't need a weapon, I will protect you, and look at Ukraine, and right? So the fight for Ukraine is really fight for democracy, fight for peace, fight for so many values, human values. And actually, I'm really glad I met Marina, because it just, this human dimension, that we all are humans, and just humanity, and that shows the worst. The war shows the worst of humanity and the best of humanity. And it was really touching to say when you said that, well, you feel sorry for young people who are just dying. And right now you all heard about, there is another refugee line is coming, right, with the Russians who are running for their lives. As political scientist, I'm thinking, well, this is the force that, when the Soviet Union collapsed, there was the Iron Curtain, and all this force against authoritarianism was inside of the country. Now all these people who are against authoritarianism, they are leaving. So what will happen to Russia and the rest of us, with Russia being so authoritarian? But there is a huge crisis. Georgia has more Russians probably in Tbilisi than Georgians, and they're running to Armenia, they're running everywhere. And so I don't know when, and it's not if, when they come here, that bridge will have some, I don't know, some thinking to do.
Yeah. We will respond. As young people, Irina brought so many good comparisons. This is so shocking for me, because this is like moving from Tennessee to Georgia, from Georgia to Tennessee. We have borders, people, went to school, to Russia, to Ukraine, married, visited, vacationed. So there are a lot of my former students who live in Moscow, who lived in Russia, for opportunities, for jobs. It's so sad that it happened. As a humanitarian, I don't know how long it will take to erase it. My mom, who lived through World War II, would shudder when she would hear German language, because it brings back the memory. She never wanted to travel to Germany. She didn't have, anything against Germans, but she lived in Kyiv. When you see the main thoroughfare, it was burned before Kyiv was surrendered to Germany. And ironically, my father, who was an architect, and a young volunteer who wasn't drafted but went voluntarily to fight for his country, came back and was in charge of restoring this main thoroughfare. My mom cut every ribbon on the post office, on the conservatory, on every building, because he wanted his wife to be a special person, to cut the ribbon. This is where I grew up. All of this, the beautiful things, is the place where we skipped classes. There is a tunnel where nobody can see you. The place where I smoked my first cigarette so that mom didn't know. The place where we pretended that we're older and we were served cocktails. There was this little place, like Irina says, it's all very personal. And my father was involved in this restoration, and to think could he ever thought that Russians, people he fought with together, shoulder to shoulder in World War II, will do this to Ukrainians. It's just complete insanity, complete insanity. But as I said, I have no hard feelings about Russians. My hard feelings are against Putin and idea what was happening, not on the scientific level, but on human level. I was very concerned when he became a president. I don't like strong authoritarian, he's a man type. It always has to be, he's a good collaborator, he is a good negotiator, he cares about the people, all the people on his side, people on other, but there was this sentiment, a strong leader. I consider myself a leader. I consider myself a strong leader. It doesn't involve humiliating or in any way obstructing the other person's rights to have their own opinion, to live their own life, to enter, whatever organization they want to enter. You have to, as a future of this country, and obviously today we're pretty much, Irina explained to you that the world is a small place where we're all citizens of the world. There is no more a little southern town in Tennessee. Look how we interconnected to everything that is happening there. Never allowing anybody to be strong by the way of intimidation. This is just a great lesson for young people. And Russians bought into it. At the beginning, they were voting for you, volunteer. Then, of course, it was, I don't know, farce. And it was not really democratic election. But at the beginning, what attracted him was pro-Russia. He will restore the way people think about us. Oh gosh, if the only thing you're respected for is force, who wants this respect? So I think this is one of the things that people kind of have to be aware and never ever allow to be pushed in that direction,
I think that's about all the time we've got. However, we have some desserts and coffee and drinks out here. Please take a moment and ask some more questions. Marina.
Are there any tickets left?
There are no tickets left.
There are none?
It's sold out. We have a waiting list only.
Okay, but so you could show up and somebody could return a ticket?
If that happens, yes.
Because I have an extra ticket for Friday.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it in the box office.
Okay, wonderful. Anyway, take a few minutes, please.
Thank you. I applaud you for coming.